So, welcome to our podcast this week. We are always curious about what's going on in the world, and this week, SEO hit our radar, and we were thinking, so many companies are doing so much about SEO, but actually now some new things, new books, everything. One is AEO, which is answer engine optimization, and a version of it that probably the same thing is GEO, which is generative experience optimization. So in this changing world, Tom, let us know what you think.
Now this is, I guess, a bit of a more of a executional marketing topic, working to get leads and eyeballs onto your websites, into your various digital assets. But it has, I think, some very strategic implications. That's why we're talking about it. Companies have for so long, not for so long, things change so fast. I guess the last, 10 decade and a half, companies have been trying to optimize for search engines, right? You want your company's assets to come up when people are searching for relevant things out there in the digital sphere. And so companies have put lots of money into maximizing search engine optimization. And here we go. The landscape's changing again because with the advent of AI, so many people are, skipping Google or going to Google's AI or their AI chatbot or software of choice and doing searches, asking for recommendations. Um, and so the question becomes, how do these softwares, ChatGPT, Copilot, et cetera, how do they make their choices as to what they serve up? And the idea here is that I guess that we've been exploring a little bit is that these engines try to understand your needs and try to ultimately make a recommendation or narrow the list based on what they think you want. And I think there's some very big strategic implications to that so that you can make that work in your favor. And that's, I guess, what we are talking about today. So what do you guys, what are some thoughts about how companies can make this new landscape work for them?
I think before we get into that, one thing that made me smile was that, when you started off and you talked about, for the longest time we've been optimizing SEO. When you think about it, you go back 20 years and it was like, what's this Google thing? Google, what, like a search place, is it? And it's going to be all of that. And then all of a sudden, where did before we had search engines, and let's be honest, we had Google. I mean, Google dominates that space so much that you would look in trade directories, you would advertise in trade specific publications. That's where the information, the way you needed to be seen. And then it changes, and we're all thinking, man, the world's gone crazy. We're now, it's all about owning the words and being first in those natural page rankings, not to mention pay per click. And it's a sort of subset of this is buying those
Yeah,
words.
buying
But
it. Yeah.
yeah, but we're thinking of like this ultimate, and that was so radical. It shifted the context of how people accumulate knowledge. It changed forever how people go through the buying cycle. Initially, they would early doors start looking at alternatives, start gathering data, much more rich environment. And we thought this is the brave new world. And all of a sudden, we've got yet more context added with these search engines. So I just think it's funny that we're talking about this as if a venerable old trend was falling away to this new one. This thing itself didn't last 10 years. Well, it still exists, but its dominance, its unique dominance didn't last 10 years. That's the speed of things that we're going. And we could
Yeah.
speculate about what the next 10 years will look like, but I don't think we should. But yeah, so I think that the key is how fast moving everything is, but also how related they are. And this is just one thought I want to throw out there for discussion. I mean, SEO or search engines essentially replace the normal sources of data, magazines, publications, trade shows and expos, and those sorts of areas that pulled like-minded people together. SEO just took that idea and made it digital, accessible, and boundaryless. And the same way with AI, because if you ask AI a question, if you say, I'm thinking of getting some work done on my house, I want an extension, I want to remodel my kitchen or something like that, if you ask it for advice, it'll come up and say searching the web. It doesn't inherently know who your local kitchen fitters are, right? It doesn't know that. It then searches. So in a way, I wonder if it's just adding a layer on top of SEO. Does it still use search? And does the AI go search for something? And is it still important that you're available to those? And I guess that's what the answer engine optimization ideas are. So it's taking a similar thing and it's evolving it to a different way, but the core, I guess, probably remains the same. I mean, is SEO not that important? It probably still is.
It still is.
Interesting.
It still is. Go ahead, Mary. I
Yeah.
want to hear. I did a little research on that, but Mary, talk to us
Okay.
about.
Well, yeah, I want to go a little bit deeper into what you said about needs based. Like all of us, a lot of us are using a different version of AI, and it's learning about us and our needs. And what is really cool about that is that is the crux of what we believe has always existed. People buy or make decisions based on their needs. Well, now technology is enabled to help us in whatever segment that we're in, make it easier, faster. I was just talking to an insurance company, and they said that they're focused on this. And why would an insurance company care about that? Well, the types of insurance that you may need, or the words that you need. Some people, are more motivated to hear, financially, you can do this, whereas other ones are like, just don't, make sure that your loved ones are taken care of. So it's real. It's just now it's making it easier for that to be available. So,
Yeah.
Tom, what were you going to say?
Well, what I want to kind of bridge those two thoughts because yes, Sean, from my research, SEO still matters because of what you're talking about. You see your AI engine search in the web when you ask something. So there is a component of SEO that does still matter. But Mary, you're talking about needs and the inherent desire of an AI is to kind of match up a recommendation with what it thinks that you need. And so many of us, as we've learned more and more how to use AI, we basically train it. We have these long chat strings where we've talked about a certain topic and said, help me find this. This is what I'm looking for. AI is also very good at asking clarifying questions if you train it to do that. You have to train it because otherwise it'll just kind of assume, right? We've all had that experience. But if you say, ask me any questions you need to kind of hone in on my needs a little bit more, it will do that. And then it will go and it will search for something that it thinks matches your needs. And so really this idea, my conclusion that I've come to is that needs-based segmentation is absolutely more important than ever before. Because if AI is going to continue to play a more and more pivotal role in making recommendations to you, and it inherently wants to make a perfect match with your needs, if you as a company wanting that recommendation to be that of your product, you need to do a better job of really organizing your content for specific need sets, because then AI may find a direct match and say, my client who I am searching for matches that need segment, and here is exact information that fits what they're looking for. It just will make things more efficient, a better investment for you for your marketing dollar. That's what I am concluding from all this.
Do you
I like
think?
what you know what, and I work with you a lot every day. And yet I didn't realize how you're using AI in some ways. Like I hadn't realized that, that's an important step when you're probing to say, what other things do you need to know about me to make a recommendation? I hadn't done that before, but I think that that would train it up even more. That's a good
Oh,
idea.
oh, it's huge. I mean, you know, in investing time in loading documents that are that just kind of are close to what you really want and need and your style. I mean, even if you're just using it for some help with content and you're loading articles and say, this is how we write and this is how we think, help us to kind of refine this topic. It's a huge way to make progress with AI and get more useful content out of it.
I think it's interesting to imagine the use case of how people would use it. If you were buying, say you wanted something like consumery, like I want a mid-range EV. What are the best mid-range EVs out there? Then if you ask that basic question, it'll probably, and I've not done this, you may have done this, Tom, as part of your research. I'm sure it'll come some clarifying questions like what's important to you or what have you. But it'll go through some process of taking a consumer through choices. And I imagine that would be the same if you said, I'm a hospital administrator, I need to buy a new MRI scanner. What's out there? Maybe it'll also give you some latest updates. And that's, I guess, where business and marketing people care about, right? As soon as someone's making that inquiry, how do we tap into that? How do we make sure that that inquiry, that interest is directed towards us? Is that how you see people using it? I've not really thought about this
Well,
too much.
absolutely. I mean, I think we need to take a step beyond thinking about just using your personal chat GPT to do your business. Let's think now about enterprise AI systems, right? Enterprise AI systems that are plugged into a company's databases and are in place to help that company both, harness its data and in some cases make better decisions. What's it doing? If that is an enterprise system and the CIO is talking about some new category of software that he or she wants to buy, an enterprise system is not just going to go out and randomly select what SEO tells it to serve up. That's going to be part of it. But the other piece of it is it's going to look across the company's queries, the company's data. It's going to try to figure out what that company wants and needs out of that software specifically. And then it's going to try to serve up the recommendations of that short list of companies that really will serve those specific needs, regardless of whether those companies have spent a ton on SEO or not. If they have, it'll help a little bit. But the thing that pushes it over the line for the companies that maybe have spent less is if their content matches up well with the type of situation that this enterprise is a match with.
So how would that come together? What I'm trying to think of here is SEO. I kind of get right. So if the word that people use a lot is online banking or whatever it is, then you want to make sure that you've got that word referenced in the right way within your website, your article, so as the search engines say, "Oh, this is relevant. I'll bring this one back, or I'll rank this one high based on the search." So with the AI, if somebody was searching and say it was a B2B thing, it was a bit of medical equipment, and maybe there was a categorization rather than a segmentation, but let's say there's a category where they don't mind the big upfront cost that they can capitalize, but they want low monthly maintenance costs. They want to capitalize, say, the maintenance of it, like a contract hire. And that's important to them. So then is it up to us or the businesses to make sure that they are referencing that very specific benefit so as the AI, when looking around, goes, oh, these people look like a good fit for that. Is that the sort of thing that you're thinking of this will evolve into?
Early on, before the AI learns more and more over time about the company's particular habits, preferences for that, that kind of a subscription, model.
Right.
But even more importantly, what kind of organization is it? Is it a company that is really looking to compete by lowering its operating costs so they can
Mm.
be the low price provider? Are they the kind of organization that's trying to operate as a customer intimate kind of organization so they can, charge a little bit more but be a little closer to their customers? The AI, the enterprise AI, will learn that about the organization over time, probably pretty quickly. And then, as so many people in the organization are utilizing the system to do their various inquiries and searches, it's going to learn over time what this company really wants and try to match it with its specific
And
needs.
that's the bit I'm thinking through that I think is the action that we can take as suppliers, right? Is like, how do we make sure then that we are served up as meeting those needs. I get how it would learn the needs of a collective, business need,
Yeah.
and almost write its own sort of needs-based segmentation. This business is looking for these benefits in this ranked order. Those people who have used our system and processes know exactly what we're talking about. The weighting and rating model for benefits sought. AI could figure that out based on multiple input, could learn that. It's how it then finds a match. How does it then say, you want XYZ medical devices? Those are the people that meet my asset. It's that bridge. How do they, what can we do as
Yeah.
suppliers to make sure we're in that spotlight, I guess is my question.
Here's an idea. I mean, it goes back to the good old fashioned walking in the shoes of the customer. And I think one of the ways it might be fun to play with is to say, assume now I'm, a hospital administrator and I'm making a decision on new MRI equipment. Um, and assume that I, have bought these types of pieces of equipment in the past. So you, as the person that's doing this, has some insight into that segment and can create a persona of, this is who I am. Now tell me what you got, what type of search would come back if I was that customer looking for it. And then I might do round two, where I would say, now assume that I'm this type of a customer and I bought this kind of stuff and this is what drives my decisions. Tell me what type of searches would come back. So that's, I think, how
Yeah.
you start to at least get
That's
insight into it.
that's why I think this is a strategic topic for us, because I think the simple answer is understand your most important needs-based segments and try to create variable content, okay, that matches those personas or those segments so that when a company is in your target market is looking for that your type of product, you get served up because you're a perfect match. And that means that you can't just have one size fits all content in digitized form. Your digital content needs to be variable and needs to be different for the different segments that you consider in your target market. If you will create content and resources in that way, you are now raising your odds of being served up by these new agents. Yeah.
I
And
just did a cheeky search while we were talking, which is quite rude, isn't it, to type away? But I was just curious to say, I'm in my hospital. I need a new MRI. What are the best? So no context, just what are the best? And I've got good news, good news for Siemens, GE, Philips, and Canon, which is formerly Toshiba. And if you're not one of those and you sell MRIs, then you need to up your game because it didn't come back with anyone specifically. But it's quite interesting what it comes back with is a lot of in-depth knowledge of who the suppliers are and some of the models, the MR360, 1.5T, and so forth. Very detailed from a very, very simple query. And I guess your point, Tom, is that if it knew more and more about our very specific needs, not just the general needs, it would be even more targeted. That's the interesting part, isn't it?
absolutely.
Yeah,
If
and
it
some of your
comes to an enterprise
limitations.
system. Yeah. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah. Like you might even say, now assume that I don't have, cash available. I need to finance this, or I don't have a lot of space available in my hospital. We actually are, very space constrained, or I don't have very educated, well, I can't say educated. I have a very junior staff of clinicians that are working in this particular area. So, it has to be something pretty straightforward. So those are the types of things you might do.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're making that request and you're about to spend six figures or more on software for a hospital, you bet you're not just going to say, tell me what are the best. You're going to say, this is who we are. We are this type of a organization. I'm looking for this. Here are some of my needs. I mean, come on, that's what a business person who's going to spend six figures is going to enter into that system. And the system, again, if it's an enterprise system that's been trained up a little while for that hospital, it's going to know a little bit about how the hospital operates, and it's going to add all that into it. Look, it's sometimes I don't know what the exact term is, but I've heard a lot about this agentic, agentic commerce that AI makes available. Well, what is an agent? An agent is someone acting on your behalf who has specific knowledge of your needs. That's what an agent does. And so, what we have to do, I believe, in this B2B world, if we want to be served up in this agentic world, we've got to think through what are the specific kinds of needs that we serve and how can we make sure that our digital content matches those needs. So even if we're not some of the big companies that Sean just talked about that get served up when you have like a basic search, how does my
Yeah.
little company punch above its weight? Well, it's if AI finds us and says, wow, this is a perfect match for what this hospital is trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I
that's
mean,
really good. Now, the last comment.
do I get the last comment?
There you get the last comment.
Okay. Well, actually, no. I'm just building on this because I once I've opened Pandora's box, I keep going in there. When you sub-specify, I've got a low. I just said I've got a low budget. Didn't say anything about what the budget was, and it's recommending refurbed options, but also other options like Hitachi and Paramed and OpenMark. So it responds to that need. And to Tom's point, I get the idea that we start off general, and as it learns and adapts, it thinks this is the kind of thing that's important to you over hundreds or thousands of inputs. Then it becomes this agent. And I know I said at the beginning we shouldn't think about what comes next because we said we had magazines and expos, then we had SEO, and now we've got AI and or search answer engine optimization. But you can see that agent model, Tom, actually with both buyers and sellers committing their inventories and their key differentiators, their value propositions in the model and having it almost matched. It's going to be like some massive Tinder type app where businesses will be swiping left and right on their what were previously very considered purchases. Who knows? Who knows?
Big thought. That's a big thought, Sean.
Had to leave it on a big one.
That's a big one. Tinder for hospitals.
You heard it here first. We should
Yes,
Love it.
yes.
make that.
And I'm going to stop this now before Sean goes any further in his investigations or his comments. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.